Welcome to Fluxedo Junction. I'm Scott Kukler. Each week we bring you the best music of all genres from throughout the world, and this week we'll be speaking with author Jenny Boyd. The last time she was on this show, back in 2020, was to promote her autobiographical book Jennifer Juniper, or Journey Beyond The Muse, which detailed her life as a model in the Swinging Sixties, spending time in the company of some of the world's most famous musicians, having been married to both Mick Fleetwood and Ian Wallace, and also being at different times a sister-in-law to both George Harrison and Eric Clapton. That book was also a story of self-discovery. After courageously moving on from a divorce and substance abuse, Jenny earned her master's in counseling psychology and a PhD in humanities, which is where another of her books, Icons of Rock, in their own words, comes from. That book, now available in hardback, Kindle, and audiobook, is a major rewriting of her first book, Musicians in Tune. It was born out of interviews she conducted over the last 30 years, and it's a compelling and groundbreaking work on the creative process, featuring insights from the likes of Sinead O'Connor, Mick Fleetwood, Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, Stevie Nicks, Ronnie Wood, George Harrison, Phil Collins, Joni Mitchell, Randy Newman, Peter Gabriel, Ringo Starr, and Huey Lewis. So let's get things started with Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac and a song called Showbiz Blues, here on Fluxedo Junction.
Bothering me. I was a rambling pony. I would roll, and I would roll from town to town. I was a rambling pony. I would roll from town to town. Yes, just looking for a sweet woman. I'm making my love come on down. If I need anybody, baby, I would take you home with me. If I need anybody, baby, I would take you. Baby, I would take you. Baby, I would take you home with me. Oh, but I don't need nobody. I don't need anybody but him and me. And you're sitting there so green. Believe me, man, I'm just the same as you. Said you're sitting there so green. Believe me, man, I'm just the same as you. You want me to make a lamb cry or be satisfied? And that's exactly what I mean to do.
I guess we'll jump right into it. We've spoken before. You were on the show when it was on a different station, like a week before COVID lockdowns hit in this country. And
Oh,
yeah, and it was the interview was about your other book. And we referenced an earlier version of this book quite a bit because um, I read an earlier version of this years ago, and I use it with my students. I'm a music teacher, and now the current version has new material, and it's sort of been slightly reorganized. Can you speak a little bit about what the differences are between the two versions?
yeah. Scott, so did you manage to get hold of the book?
Yes, I do have it.
Good. Okay, so the difference is, okay, where do we start?
Well, there are some additional interviews, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But what happened is that I had all the audio tapes, the cassette tapes, for years and years and years. And then finally I thought, well, I'm never going to need these anymore. And there were so many of them I'd been looking after with my life, because I thought they'd all trusted me with these interviews and didn't want anyone to steal them. And so I started destroying all these audio cassettes. And then for some reason, I just kept 8. And the 8 that I kept were Joni Mitchell, George Harrison, Ringo, Don Henley, Graham Nash, Ravi Shankar, and Tony Williams, the jazz drummer.
Sure.
And so in the new book, I transcribed those interviews, the whole interview, which had never been heard before. And the interviews were done between 1988 and 1990. So we got Joni Mitchell and George, and so that's one new thing. The other thing is, whereas in the first book, I had the interviews, little snippets of the interviews under the different chapters. So Keith Richards might be under nurturing parents or grandparents, or, so they'd come in at different parts of each chapter heading. Where now, with Keith Richards and all of them, each of them, you just see Keith Richards and you've got all the interview that was actually in the book, but put into one, 2 pages. And the other thing is because I wanted to show people the difference between the music world then and the music world now. So then we have Jacob Collier, the whole interview, Atticus Ross, who's been doing film music for the last few years and, won lots of Academy Awards. So interviewed him, and Egg White, who's has written prolific songwriter for Adele and people like that. And then another woman, Sarah Warwick, who used to be a sort of teeny bopper type of person, especially in America, and in the 90s. Then she's actually a 3-time cancer survivor, and her music is very different, how she uses it and how she's teaching people to write their own songs. And, she's taken a different approach. And that was for me to show the healing power of music. So it's quite different in many ways.
Now, the diversity of the musicians that you have spoken to is one of the things that I love about this book, especially since there are definitely musicians from different backgrounds and different disciplines who end up kind of describing some of the same things that they experience. And I wonder if you've found yourself, being a creative person by being a writer, if you've found that you've shared some of these experiences as well.
Yes, and as I say in the first book, I think I probably said it in the introduction of this book, I never felt creative. I always, when I was surrounded by, whether it was the Beatles or the Fleetwood Mac or, tons of different musicians who are so creative. So I was kind of pitting against these mega, creative people. But actually, I realized I am creative. And that's what I learned through doing this book. And I thought, well, this is wonderful for people who, like me, felt they weren't creative. But what would happen when I was writing is that I would experience this thing called, what I've asked the musicians about, the peak experience, or nowadays it's called going into the zone. And I would experience that, and words would come from nowhere, and you think and look back and think, God, did I do that? You know, and a lot of musicians talk about that, and they'd say it in other ways as well as in songwriting when they're playing together on stage, and they all get into that zone together. I think it was David Crosby who said, you know, they would actually start the wrong verse at the same time, all of them, because they were so in tune and so in that zone together. And that's the wonderful thing about concerts. You get the audience going into that zone and everybody kind of takes off. And those become those very special nights.
Now, I'm just an amateur musician who's lucky enough to teach, but even in my own limited experience, there are things that some of these brilliant people discuss that I've experienced on a very small scale myself. I've had my own peak experiences with my, you know, dinky little bar band here on Long Island, and even the songwriting process. I've experienced what a few other people have experienced or described, which is that moment, that twilight moment, just as you're starting to fall asleep, when all of a sudden that song idea pops into your head. And of course, that's that wonderful moment just before sleep where you're at your most comfortable. And it's that point where you least want to get out of bed and record something or write something down. But as so many people have observed, if you don't do it, that song will be gone in the morning. And
that's right.
And I wonder, because I've had these experiences that these great people discuss, I wonder if you believe that everybody has the ability. Is this something that you can maybe train your brain to tap into, do you think?
To be creative, or to get those moments just before sleep where you go into that zone?
I thought I was asking about creativity in general, but now that you mention it, I suppose what I'm really asking about is that ability to tune in, you know, almost, I would imagine, the same way one can get into a deeper state of mind through meditation. I wonder if you believe that really anybody could access this ability to do that if they could train themselves.
Yes, I do. You know, even athletes, one hears, you know, they get into the groove and they go into that state too. I think everybody, that's my feeling, you know, even the people that think they're not creative, I think everybody has that potential, as you said, you know, even in meditation, because I've experienced that, definitely. So, and I think it's when one's really concentrating and really focused. And I think that's when it can happen. And it's not something that you can make happen. It just sort of, it's like the muse, you know, it just visits when it wants to.
The tambourine man play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there's no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning I'll come following you. Oh, I know that evening's a pie as he returned into sand, and he's from my hand. Left me blindly here to stand, but still not sleeping. My weariness amazes me. I'm branded on my feet. I have no one to meet, and the ancient empty streets too dead for dreaming. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to. Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song with me. In the jingle jangle morning I come following you. Take me on a trip upon your magic swirling ship. My senses have been stripped, My hands can't feel the grip, my toes too numb to step. Wait only for my boot heels to be wandering. I'm ready to go anywhere, I'm ready for TV. Into my own parade, cast your dancing spell my way. I promise to go under it. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song with me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song with me. In the jingle jangle morning I come following you. Disappearing through the smoke rings of my mind, down the foggy ruins of time, far past the frozen leaves, haunted frightened trees, out to the windy beach, far from the twisted reach of crazy sorrow. There's to dance beneath the diamond sky with one hand waving free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, with all memory fade, live on deep beneath the waves. Let me forget about the day until tomorrow. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song with me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song with me. In the jingle jangle morning I come following you.
Yeah, I remember a funny story. I had the good fortune to briefly do a little bit of work behind the scenes with Arlo Guthrie, and he was describing having met Bob Dylan as a young child. Obviously, his father, Woody Guthrie, was one of Bob Dylan's heroes, and he met him when he was maybe 14 and already, I think, idolized him. And he recounted hearing Bob Dylan tell a story about his songwriting process where, I throw my rod into the stream and I grab them as on their way downstream. And Arlo made a joke about it, saying, I got to get farther down or farther upstream so I can get them before Bob does.
Right.
But
right.
I find it so interesting that not everybody, but so many people describe it the same way. And some of the people who describe these things are people who, to my knowledge, are not specifically spiritual people, and yet they still have this idea that it's coming from someplace else. Do you find that people in other disciplines, I know that your specialty on this topic has been with musicians, but have you spoken with actors or dancers or even scientists or anyone else who describes these same types of things?
No, I haven't, because I think music and musicians are what I have grown up with, I suppose, have been surrounded, and musicians who are very sort of, well known and obviously especially for definite reasons, very, I don't know, the top, a lot of them, the top kind of cream of the crop musicians. And so I think, and because I love music and love to dance and everything to do with that, that's why I would kind of go towards musicians. Yeah. Because that's part of my experience for the last, many, many years. The story about Bob Dylan is just how he experienced. Yeah, and another way of saying it is Joni Mitchell said it with the net that you catch your creativity with is made up from the threads of your alertness. So it is, if you through life really alert and, mindful, more up-to-date word, things happen. And I think one notices synchronicity, which I think is a very spiritual thing. And that's all part of the creative process.
You mentioned athletes earlier and describing the peak experience, and it brings to mind another book that I reference with my students a lot, a book called The Inner Game of Music by Barry Green and Tim Galloway. And they had originally written a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. I believe they were athletes who determined that this is something that musicians can benefit from too. I wonder if you think that is it beneficial to have a spiritual view of the world towards being a creative person? Do you think there's an advantage to that, or is that just something that coincides? Because I really can't help but compare some of the things you write about to the experience of meditation and my limited experience with it myself. And it's really, I guess, tapping into a deeper state of mind in a sense. Is that an accurate way of describing it?
Yeah, absolutely. And originally the book, my dissertation, which is how it all started, was called The Spiritual and Creative Link. Because and it depends how people describe what spirituality is, but it's definitely a kind of otherworldliness about it. When that peak experience happens, it's almost as if you then become the vessel, and it's something coming through you, and that's how a lot of these musicians have described it.
My last question for you, because you've already been so generous with your time, is again, you referenced earlier the change in the music industry since you conducted some of the original interviews, and that being sort of the impetus for interviewing some more people about this. Do you think there is I know that it gives more access. It levels the playing field somewhat for musicians. Now anybody can put their music up on Spotify. And that's, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I always remember reading a Frank Zappa quote about the music industry in the 60s, where he said, back then, record companies were largely run by older men from a previous generation who really didn't understand, 60s music or the hippie movement or any of those things. And as a result of that, they pretty much just signed everything for fear of missing out on something. So everybody was more or less able to get their shot. And back in those days, if you were signed with a record company, you could get 2 or 3 albums out that maybe didn't do huge business before something big really broke. Record companies would give you a chance. And of course, there are good and bad points of working with record companies, but one of the good things is that they have the ability to distribute and promote and do all of these things. Do you feel that with the way things are now, the necessity of musicians having to do so many of these other things can draw away from the creative process?
Do you mean where it's much more controlled, contrived? You've got to have certain number of minutes on, if you want to put it on Spotify.
Yeah.
You've got to have the sort of the hit thing that actually keeps people interested by, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I think it must be really hard. And I wonder, it's, where people used to make a lot of money from having a record company if they're a pop band. But nowadays I hear, they don't make that much money now, because a lot of people, they're not with record companies, it's all to do with Spotify and social media. And so I don't know where the creative process comes in there. I think, I don't know. I mean, talking to Egg White, he still gets to that point where, he gets that aha moment. But I'm guessing it's much more difficult the way it's laid out now. It's not all that free expression that they were allowed to have before.
Well, it's almost like there's so much out there now that the playing field has been leveled and everybody can get their stuff out there. It's almost harder to weed through, the bad stuff to get to the good stuff and to draw attention to yourself, even if it was all good stuff. Trying to draw attention to your good stuff as opposed to somebody else's can be a full-time job, I guess.
Well, that's right. And I think a lot of people now go out and they tour because that's the way that they can then make money and put their music across.
Yeah, I remember hearing an interview with Roger Daltrey not that long ago where he said something like, we'll never release a new studio album again. Why would we? There's no way to make money doing it. And then, of course, a year or two later, The Who did release an album. But, I guess there are challenges for young artists as well as established artists in this new world. And I'm just grateful that we have people like yourself who are willing to dig into the process and sort of explain what you can to people like myself who aren't necessarily super educated on this sort of thing, but I still find it fascinating. And I really appreciate your time. And I really just want to thank you because I really do use your writing with my students all the time. And I feel like it really helps bridge a gap and help people to understand that, it may seem mystical and it may seem mysterious, but I do believe that it's something everybody can access. And your work has definitely helped me to understand that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. And are you based in New York?
Yeah, I'm on Long Island, and you have Beatlefest coming up, right? You're going to be making an appearance at Beatlefest in New Jersey, I think?
That's right. That's the weekend of the 9th.
Excellent.
9th, 10th. So I don't know. If you find yourself there, do come find me and come say hi.
Absolutely. And thank you again so much, and good luck with everything. Take care.
Thank you.
I've made up my mind, don't need to think it over. If I'm wrong, I am right. Don't need to look no further, this ain't last. I know this is life, but if I tell the world, I'll never say enough, 'cause it was not said to you, and that's exactly what I need to do if I end up with you. Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? Or would it be a waste, even if I knew my fate? Should I leave it there? Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? I build myself up and fly around in circles, waiting as my heart drops and my back begins to tingle finally. Could this be it all? Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? Or would it be a waste, even if I knew my fate? Should I leave it there? Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? Yeah. Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? Oh,